Hey guys, I got another decent build to show, but this one is not really fine-tuned. I did not even attempt Shaper, but I'm pretty sure that it should be able to. I just want to experiment a bit with Cast and Crit Wander and farm some currency because I was broke, but finally I'm not broke anymore and I will be able to afford some meme builds. So this is kind of a filler build, but it is definitely very strong for mapping. And I got two versions of this build to show. One is very FPS intensive with ball lightings, and another one is just using arc. I did try to kind of test my damage against Tool Boss and Ash Boss. I went with arc against one boss and with Ice Spear ball lighting against other boss, and it roughly took me about 6 to 7 seconds to kill both bosses. So I can't really tell which build is more viable, but the arc one is a bit more affordable, and with arcs you would have more reliable crit chance and more cold damage, which would allow to freeze stronger enemies. And the only kind of required unique for this build is Lycosidae shield. And of course you do need some decent one with a lot of base crit chance, good attack speed, and some damage to spells or crit chance for spells or crit multiplier. Overall build performed pretty well while mapping and dealing with Syndicate, and map bosses melted fast. But fight against tier 13 Elder was pretty slow, but since that fight I did improve the build quite a bit more. The build is also pretty well against most of the map mods. Obviously Elemental Reflect is a no-go. Cannot Leech and no regen maps are always annoying, but other than that all the other mods are doable. Now I want to talk a bit about Cast and Crit setup. As I remember, Barrage used to roll critical strike chance on each projectile. So with Barrage it would be very easy to proc at least one Cast and Crit setup. But as I played with this build, I'm not entirely sure that it still works that way. Without my Diamond Flask and with power charges up, my Barrage has on average 55% base crit chance. And when I shoot 9 projectiles, I sometimes don't proc anything. And I do always hit. And I do have Pierce, so I hit multiple enemies. So it seems like Barrage rolls critical strike chance on attack, not on each projectile. Either all projectiles crits or none, but I'm still not entirely convinced. But to make it feel smoother, you want as much crit chance on Barrage as possible. A very easy crit chance boost is a Diamond Flask with new mod. Increase critical strike chance during flask effect. You do unlock this mod if you unveil a unique flask with this mod. Or you can ask people you trust to craft this mod on your flask. Or just buy a Diamond Flask with this mod. So maybe let's talk a bit more about my item setup. To break away from aspect of the spider addiction, I am actually using aspect of the cat this time. Farrul's by the helmet is pretty cheap, around 30-40 chaos. I did get a lucky barrage attack speed enchantment on the helmet, but it is not required. I do have enough attack speed even without it. Aspect of the cat gives me rotational buffs. Basically, Cat's stealth gives me crit chance, and Cat's agility gives me attack speed and cast speed. And the Farrul's helmet itself gives me 1% base crit chance. If you are going for the arc setup, you definitely do not need this. You would have enough crit chance by using increased critical strike chance support gem, which I'm gonna talk a bit later on. Next, Lycosidae shield, like I said, makes you always hit, which is very important for cast and crit builds, and I guess very important for Wander builds because we tend to have low accuracy. Amulet, nothing too special, a bit of crit multiplier, some life and resistances. One of the ring with a decent amount of life resistances and some dexterity, which I do need. Another ring which I only recently crafted is the shaped ring, and I was looking for the life gain for each enemy hit by your spells. Since I do hit with a lot of spells hits, I spear multiple hits, ball lightings multiple hits per second, but I only crafted this ring at level 89 and I use it only for a couple hours. And it definitely does help, but it's not really required, I would say. You could also try getting Warlord's Mark on a hit ring, or maybe a lighting or cold damage leech amulet, and then maybe use Assassin's Mark on a hit ring, or just go budget, generic damage and life. Also look at my body armor. Now stop looking at it. The belt just life and resistances, boots, life, resistance, movement speed. You don't need cooldown recovery speed, I just had it from previous build. Enchantment on boots is pretty important, you definitely want leech, which you can easily get from a Cruel Lab. Now on the gloves, you definitely want some projectile pierce. It makes life so much better. I was using a unique jewel which gives 1 additional pierce until I crafted these gloves, which also gives global blind chance, which is very nice, especially if you don't have Farrul's helmet. But other than that, nothing too special. Life, global blind, and craft pierce. Did I mention my wand? Here's my wand. Nothing too crazy. On Abyss Jewels I try to get a lot of flat life and some damage, and I am actually using one barrage threshold jewel socketed near the shadow area. It's not really needed, it just makes it aiming a bit easier because barrage by itself is pretty slim and the hitbox is pretty small, but with the threshold jewel you add extra arrows to the first projectile and to the last projectile, so it does give a bit more spread, which makes it a bit easier to hit enemies. Now let's quickly talk about skills and links. Barrage setup is in my body armor. It is linked with cast on crit, ball lighting, ice spear, GMP and power charge on crit. Now the less FPS intensive setup is to use arc, swap ball lighting with arc, and swap ice spear with increased critical strike support, and then swap GMP for added cold damage. If you are using arc setup, you will want to run Wrath Aura, if not then Anger Aura. And if you are not using Aspect of the Cat, you may want to just run Herald of Ice. Also I have Righteous Fire linked with increased duration, Flame Dash, Ice Golem, Decoy Totem, then I have one cast when damage taken setup linked with Immortal Call and Frost Wall, and then Stormbrand linked with Wallace Mark and Curse on Hit and Arcane Surge, and then Phase Run linked with increased duration. Now the rest of the passive skill tree, this is Inquisitor. Basically with Inquisitor you ignore enemy resistances on critical strikes, you get more damage and then faster attack speed. I took all power charge nodes from the passive skill tree, and then just life, crit chance for spells, crit multiplier, couple jewel sockets. Now a bit about leveling process, and leveling was horrible. I almost quit this build because how terrible it felt. However, I made a mistake using cast and crit magma orb. It would be much smoother to play with arc, or just use a self-cast spell until like level 65 or whenever you can have a good band. I definitely would not recommend cast and crit for leveling. It only becomes better once you have enough crit chance and attack speed and basically everything else. It's just so much better to use self-cast magma orb or brands or whatever else you like. And I guess that's basically all. I don't want to extend this video, I have a very sore throat and I haven't really planned my next build. I have an idea what I want to do. I really want to play with Block Gladiator and maybe revisit Impale, but other than that I'm not too sure. I will basically plan a build probably tomorrow. Also I may not be able to stream tomorrow if I get more sick. So for now, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.